Hey everybody, do you like swords and sorcery? Do you like muscle-bound thews slicing into foes and taking them down by the dozens? Do you like strange cities that harbor unusual beings that may be degenerate humans that fight in the dimness of the caverns of a city-sized mansion? Well, if those things describe you, then you should read Red Nails, which is a topic of our discussion today on the Roll Off a Tangent podcast. I am Anthony, and with me today are Nikki, XJ, and Robert, as usual. And gentlemen, let's get right into it. What did you think of yet another Conan story, Red Nails? Take it
Woo!
away. Take it away. Whoever wants to jump in, dive right in bravely like
Yeah,
Conan.
I mean, first, I just want to quote the part of the story that really stuck with me after reading it. Even after all these years, I was looking forward to seeing these lines again. 1 second. The horror swept towards its victim, and he moved at last, but only to drop his sword and sink to his knees, covering his eyes with his hands. Dumbly, he awaited the stroke of the blade that now gleamed in the apparition's hand, as it reared above him, like death triumphant over mankind. Like death triumphant over mankind, I want to say again. What a line! What a line. Robert E. Howard, I tip my inexisting hat to you. What a fantastic thing to write. Yeah, the story has a lot of elements that I think people enjoy when it comes to sword and sorcery, when it comes to Conan the Barbarian. Um, I wouldn't say it's my favorite story, but one of its larger significant aspects is the fact that it's the last Conan story that was ever written and completed by Robert E. Howard. So it does hold a special place in many people's hearts and minds. As far as the plot itself is concerned, Anthony summed it up pretty well. I mean, yeah, Conan is in the jungle with a pirate woman, and they're going through it, and they're calling dinosaurs dragons, and they're going through the perilous wilderness until they find a city made out of jewels. Specifically, I think it's like jade, right, or something like that.
Jade, yes.
Yeah, Jade.
Yeah, and there's this like Thunderdome-esque situation where they're fighting each other inside this dome. There's two tribes, and they are battling over the dominion over these ruins. And they're not even tribes, really. They're like three families, maybe 7 families per tribe, right? There's like maximum of maybe 50 versus 50 if you're being generous. It's just sad. It's a really sad and bleak story if you think about it. It's not written in a way where it makes you sad, but if you just consider what's going on there, yeah, it's very tragic. Robert, you look like you're about to jump in.
I was just saying, I think you've latched onto an important point there, which is that it's written in such a way as to enable the reader to get over the appalling nature of what is being written about. And I'd like furthermore to say about the general impression the story leaves is an intensely colourful one, but it's actually just two main colours. I find that the green of the jungle and to some extent the green of jade dominates, together with the red of the blood and gore and the red nails, and also a lot of the building's interior is red. And these two colours are extremely prominent in Howard's description, but without being in the least monotonous. And I don't know how exactly he does it. I have to analyze it very exhaustively if one were to find out. But Another point worth perhaps mentioning is that I think there's a very South American-y, pre-Columbian Mayoristic feel to the story, not just the names, Zuchotl and Xotalanc and so on, which sound very Aztec, but the kind of a cultural atmosphere of blood and sacrifice seems like that, even though it's actually supposed to be happening in, I suppose, what is now North Africa, roughly speaking. I've got a map
Yeah,
here.
Robert. Yeah, Robert E. Howard definitely mixed in some of these. He definitely borrowed very liberally and sometimes very transparently from modern day cultures. So, I mean, I found his choice of using all these X names to be very confusing, and I got a lot of the places and people's names confusing. But yeah, Zoltalank and all those
Zu-
different X beginning names, but it's like very Mesoamerican. Even and the chief of one tribe is Olmec, which is actually the name of a civilization, a Mesoamerican civilization.
That
So
totally struck me too. I was like,
yeah,
no way, Robert. No way.
right. He just got bored of that or tired of making up new names. Like just Olmec, okay, whatever. They know where I'm borrowing from anyway, right? Like
Mm,
just call him Olmec.
mm. It works.
It's a
Um,
good name.
it works, yeah, it works.
Mm,
For sure. Um, but yeah, I mean this collection, I found this version of it. This is from 1977. So this is like one of the crowning jewels of this collection. This actually has, I think, the People of the Black Circle in it, Shadows over Zambula. Yeah, Beyond the Black River, Shadows in Zambula, and Red Nails is sort of the obviously what the collection's named there. This is from 1977, edited by Carl Edward Wagner, who wrote the Kane stories, which is sort of like a more intelligent sorcerer version of Conan, sort of like he was a sword bearing sorcerer, the Kane character. Um, but yeah, so I mean that being said, just the way he wrote this civilization, and there's a comment in the afterword by Wagner in this that made a great point. Like this isn't necessarily anything new in terms of a degenerate civilization or society that Conan runs into, but the depth in which he goes into, like you were saying, Nikki, that it really is a sad situation. It's just people trapped by this blood feud. Like in America is the Hatfield and McCoys, right? In the Old West is sort of the equivalent, where it's just some slight happened a generation or three ago, and then people are just bound to that blindly perpetuating this feud through across generations. So, and for something very petty, like for the hand of a woman, so for just that, just like Helen of Troy, she launched 1,000 ships, right? Well, it was this one woman, and I mean, and the civilization, these people actually fled from Stygia because this, or from nearby Stygia because someone was coming after this woman, and they fled the city and then got rid of the people that were here, and then they were fighting over the woman still. Yeah, so it was very depressing in that way. But it's like I said, Conan has a lot of that in his stories, but it's just this. It was like they went into a deep description of the reasoning behind it, and that just made it sad. Versus like, oh, here goes Conan, killing a bunch of subhuman, degenerate humans. So that I found that interesting, but like you said, Nikki, depressing too.
mm. They
Yeah,
wouldn't
just
know what to
just
do.
an oh, go on.
Sorry, I was just saying they wouldn't know what to do without the feud because it says, after we have slain them all, will it not seem strange to have no foes to fight?
Yeah.
All my life I have fought and hated the Xotalankas. With the feud ended, what is left?
Yeah, yeah,
Mm.
yeah. It's like it's
Sad.
really depressing. The more you think about it, the more you find it just crazy. But completely on the other side, I don't know if we could show this on screen for the viewers. Maybe we shouldn't. Maybe we should just put like a link down below in the description because it is. Well, let's just say the advertising in 1936 was a little bit more, out there than the current magazines that I think you would find in the store. Like, this is how Red Nails was advertised on the cover of Weird Tales for you guys. I'm gonna put it in the chat for you to see, and our
Oh,
viewers can
oh,
see
yeah.
it can see it later. Like this is what they focused on. They read the whole story and they were like, whatever's with the dinosaurs, let's show naked women sacrificing each other.
That's what sells, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Target
No, it's.
audience
To
is
be
like,
I mean, I'm surprised they got away with it.
To
Like,
be
it's
fair,
it's a crazy cover.
to be fair, Robert E. Howard did go to great lengths to describe Valeria,
Oh yeah.
and I'm gonna have to say this is the least Robert E. Howard like story I've read from him, to the point where I thought it was one of those pastiche thing that you guys played a trick on me before.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah,
the City of Skulls. Was
Yeah.
that the name? Yeah.
Yeah.
I was like, this doesn't read like Robert E. Howard, because there
yeah,
was so much.
what's the difference?
So the difference for me was there is a great deal of focus on Valeria's femininity, for one thing, and I was actually quite surprised at the portrayal of Valeria, because she is supposed to be this really dangerous woman, but she acts like a damsel in distress around Conan.
Oh, not entirely.
Yeah, it's weird. Yeah, I see what you're saying. Like he makes an effort, it seems like, to make her into a warrior, sort of almost
Yeah.
equal to Conan, but then he kind of reverts
That's
he
like
kind of
the-
flip flops.
Yes, there's like a flip flop there, back and forth, and I was like, this does not feel like Robert E. Howard from all the stories I've read before, because he's always given, except for that aberration that was the pool of the black ones, he had always given a great deal of depth to all of his characters, and so I thought it was written by someone else. Because the portrayal,
I get a feeling of what Robert E. Howard was trying to portray here is the idea of the strong woman, because he even describes it like that she's basically like, well, I usually would be like abhorrent and I wouldn't really enjoy any of this shit that Conan is doing, but because it's Conan, I don't mind. I mean, it happens in real life too, and not just about like sexual relationships. You know, you could have somebody who's a great friend of yours, and they make like dad jokes, and you're okay with it. But then when everybody else makes dad jokes, you find them, you know, not enjoyable. And it's just because it's that friend, their aura, their charisma, you know, your interest in them allows that to, you know, like to circumvent your usual desires, your usual enjoyments. Of course, I'm currently defending Robert E. Howard with a huge shield called Fanboy.
Fair enough. I'm not trying to cast shade on the story. It was just that it reminds me a lot of the City of the Skulls, right up to the going into a city in the middle of nowhere, where the city shouldn't be.
I think what this really tells us is that the City of Skulls was made akin to Red Nails.
Could be.
Right? They looked at Red Nails and they were like, we like this. Let's make something like this.
Yeah, I mean,
And
it could totally be. It could totally be. Like, all
Yeah.
of these pastiches that they came after Robert E. Howard. So
Yeah. And interesting that you say that, XJ, because at reading the afterword here in this collection, Wagner says that, you know, the circumstances in Howard's life, he wanted to move at that time when he wrote this story, in a letter that he was writing. I forget who he wrote it to, but there's an excerpt of a letter where he wanted to start moving towards more of the adventure stuff again, or so he was kind of, not that he was tired of Conan, but he wanted to. Weird Tales wasn't paying really all that much, so again, it's like the financial side of things for him. I think when he died, it said in here too, Weird Tales owed him like $1,300, which back then was a huge sum of money compared to today. So he loved Weird Tales. He loved writing for them. that was like what catapulted his career, and what he did was writing for, I think, was Weird Tales, that magazine. But he wasn't getting paid, and it was seemed like he needed to kind of branch out and maybe write for other publications. So I feel like at this time maybe he was falling back on, to circle back around, on the trope that he had written before. Conan goes with girlfriend to mysterious city, but here he really did inject it with more of that pathos of just this society that was so desperate, and just kind of picking up the magical scraps of this old society kind of to fight each other and to kill each other with. So it was
Just a quick
yeah.
FYI, $1,300 in 1936 is equivalent to $29,441
Yeah,
today.
Yeah.
no wonder he was like, I gotta move on because these people aren't paying me. I gotta
Yeah.
write some other stories,
mean,
and they're not even paying me. Yeah, go
Not to knock the story actually, because it's actually a pretty good yarn. It's like it's moving from point to point really with quite a bit of nice pacing, and I actually really like the concept of a bunch of people trapped in a really strange construction made by beings that came before, who are very mysterious. And this is part of the reason why I say it's the least Robert E. Howard like story I've read, and that is because this concept is more science fiction than it is fantasy. It brings to mind like the first thought I had when I was reading about this bunch of people trapped in this strange construction was this manga called Blame by a guy called Tsutomu Nihei. But because most people don't read that, the other thing that immediately my mind latched onto was the Garden of Rama. No, not the Garden of Rama, the very first one, Rama. By Odyssey Club, when a bunch of people, humans, were in this alien ship, and they don't know what is going on. They don't know who built it and for what purpose. The only difference is this group of people later splintered off to start fighting against each other, which is kind of what happened in the Garden of Rama. They did degenerate into rivalry between groups of humans. And so, like, this concept to me is, I love that concept because there's like this mystery surrounding the builders and all of that. But yeah, it's science fiction. It's to me, that's science fiction. That's less sword and sorcery. It's a very cool concept. I loved it. It's just like, doesn't feel quite like a Conan story to me.
Yeah, from a reader's perspective, I could definitely see like the value. I mean, to read this, and like again, this is his last story, so he'd been writing for a while. So just the description and the vividness of his writing is really in full effect. So I would say, from someone who's considering reading Conan, this is definitely, I think, from just a really good display of his. He was a great writer regardless, but this is just when he was really in his full writing powers, for sure. In terms of what he wrote and the description of it. But yeah, it's... and then again, taking this trope and, like you said, like making it more of like turning it on its ear, making it more a science fantasy, maybe even, because, could these devices that they use, that they pull up from, the catacombs below the city, be so highly advanced? Like Arthur C. Clarke, speaking of him, his famous quote, sufficiently advanced technology could be mistaken for magic. I'm paraphrasing.
Yeah,
But
I'm just like so curious. Like reading through the story, I was like so curious. What is actually down there, like in the catacombs? They never really went down, did they? It was like, come on, Robert, don't.
Come on, Robert.
Yeah, don't tease us, right, Joe?
don't tease us. Come on, show us
This
something.
is actually what I liked about the City of Skulls. There's a section there where they sort of Conan and the Aborigines fella that he finds, um, they go on to sail somewhere afterwards for a while, and then they come back. So presumably there was a bunch of adventures that they did before coming back to the City of Skulls. And I just love imagining what could they do? What was the thing that they did there? I mean, how crazy would it be if they actually thought of this, the authors of that story, and they came back with all these like artifacts. You know, Conan had this like adamantium axe or some crap, and the Aborigines fella had like this crown that could summon a demon or something, and you would just be like, "What? Where did all of this come from?" They're like, "Well, they went on adventures, man. They got some loot." Yeah.
Yeah.
Regarding the science fiction aspect, mostly I don't agree. I don't think that the atmosphere is at all SF, but I think there's a bit at the end in the last scene where old Tolkamek, who was supposed to have been tortured to death lifetimes ago, turns out to be still alive. And he has a strange way of threatening the lives of other people. It's something to do with alignment, isn't it? Alignment between him and a certain part of the metal walls or something like that. Anyway, it seems like some kind of electronic technique to me. And it shows Conan at his most quick-witted, and that he instinctively figures out what's going on, to the extent that he knows he must not allow himself to be aligned in that way. I'm being very vague because I don't fully understand it myself, but it was a very effective quasi-scientific almost theme in that last scene.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Yeah, kind of. Yeah. So, and Conan, I don't know. There was also an aspect of this story where I don't know what you felt about, but did Conan seem a little more braggadocious? I mean, I know, like, so it's a contrast with his. It's weird because you see through the stories where he's younger and he's doing all these different things, but here he's like, oh, when I was a chief of the Afghulis, or when if I was a war chief of this people, or I was that. And,
It
yeah,
did strike me that he was giving a lot of. He was giving his resume to Valeria.
Yeah, yeah,
It
yeah.
just struck me that.
Yeah.
On
What?
the other hand, he makes very little of the fact that he slew the chap who was after Valeria. He says he'd have caught you and cut your throat within a few more miles. Well, she demanded. Well, what? He seemed puzzled. What of the Stygian? Why, what do you suppose? He returned impatiently. I killed him, of course, and left his carcass for the vultures. He wasn't going to say that because, it was too obvious that was the thing to do. But because she kept questioning him, she dragged it out of him. That's not a bit of dialogue. That bit of dialogue doesn't show him in a boastful light at all.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, that's true. It was interesting though because we are getting a glimpse of like his career there. I think that's obviously what Howard was trying to do. Is like, oh, here's where all his experience and his wits come from, and his ability to puzzle things out. So again, like we were talking about in the last episode, where he's not just a barbarian that's a big dumb guy. He has the intelligence of the barbarian unsullied by civilization's decadence. So it's like an unsullied intelligence by the lassitude that civilization puts on you. So
I mean, I don't know if Conan was being boastful in the story, but I did feel as if like Robert E. Howard wanted to bring up some of the background of Conan, and it could just be because he's writing for a different magazine. Based on the little history that you have shared with us. about
maybe.
his shall we say issues with weird tales.
Yeah, actually, I mean, I think I'm looking for the letter while you guys are talking, but I think he said that this was submitted to Weird Tales. I don't know ultimately
Yeah.
off the top of my head where it was published, but was it
Well,
published by Weird Tales? Robert?
Nick
I
has
don't
just
know.
shown us
It
the
was.
Oh yeah.
Oh, it was. Okay. But yeah, because there's a letter where he said, he's talking about how he just submitted this story, which he called like his grimmest story yet for Conan. But again, like he was getting disillusioned, I think, with not being paid. So he was exploring, I think, other outlets with other types of stories that weren't Conan. But like Conan was just Weird Tales. Like he published his Conan stuff through Weird Tales. But he was branching out to adventure stuff and other things because they weren't paying him. So,
Red
but
Nails,
yeah,
originally published in Weird Tales for July, August, September, and October 1936.
yeah.
All right. Well, maybe he had the thought of submitting it to another magazine. Did he write anything after this?
He was dead.
Oh, poor.
No,
Poor Robert.
no, he didn't.
Yeah, that was posthumous, right?
It was
1936.
very, it was very comically grim there, Robert. No, he was dead. The chronology of Conan the Barbarian, which was created by Miller and Dr. John Clark, places Red Nails at the like not at the end, but closing to the end of the Conan's saga, right? Like, so right before Red Nails, it was the pool of the Black One, and then the Red Nails happen. Then there's the Jewels of Gvalur. Then there's the one we already covered, Beyond the Black River. Phoenix on the Sword, the Scarlet Citadel, and the last one is the Hour of the Dragon. As obviously that is the place where Conan is king and Conan loses his crown. Is the Scarlet Citadel set where he's king still? Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
He's sort of.
Remember.
Yeah.
Have we found a story that I have not read? I don't think I've read the Scarlet Citadel.
Oh.
It's good.
Good.
Yeah.
It's a good one. Yeah.
I mean, I have not yet found a Robert E. Howard story I couldn't read, which says a lot. Like, I'm not saying that all of his stuff is great, but there's a bunch of writers that I like, but then I get like a story by them that I just can't read. 4 authors have not done that to me, and that is Robert E. Howard, Graham McNeil, Dan Abnett, and George R. R. Martin. All of their stuff is at least readable. Everybody else, you got your work cut out for you.
Well.
Yeah.
I think.
Wow.
I think
it's
safe to say that George R. R. Martin will forever hold that record because I don't think he's going to write anything else.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's a whole other chestnut. Yeah, that's a whole other controversy.
You might say Robert E. Howard's work that he didn't publish may be found, and there's more chance of that than George R. R.
It is
Martin
true.
writing again.
It is
Perhaps.
Which is sad. I'm sure everyone wants to see the conclusion, including him himself, to his saga. I think recently he has went back to saying like now it's going to be 8 books, and I was just like, fella, you're like you've been stuck at 5 for 11 years or however many it's been.
Yeah.
More than that now. 13
It makes
years.
you wonder. It makes you wonder. Would Robert E. Howard ever reach that same place of being, resting on his laurels? I don't know. I would tend to say not. Like, if we're going to compare him to George R. R. Martin, I don't know. He might have a low opinion of George Martin just from lack of general health.
I don't know. He strikes me as more of a author Conan Doyle. At some point he's going to get really tired of Conan, and he's still going to be forced to write Conan anyway.
Yeah.
In my personal parallel universe, Robert E. Howard becomes a semi-robotic being and lives on forever.
Just
and
pumping
he
out-
writes
Just
pumping out Conan
Conan.
stories every week, just strictly for me.
That
You
is
can't
a
afford to
horrible
leave-
fate.
Well,
What's that,
Yes.
Robert?
yeah.
If you're an author, you can't afford to leave a character to life fallow for too long, because if you come back to him years and years and years later, your style has changed and it doesn't work anymore. Asimov went back to his Foundation series about 20 years after he left off, and he shouldn't really. He should have left it alone. Either that, or he should have continued with it more continuously.
Maybe he should have reread the shit he wrote. That's one of the things that I think is proponent in a lot of authors who do come back to their series is like long after. Like you really need to relearn the character and like where you went with him, what kind of arcs you gave him. Because a lot of the time when somebody returns to a character, they just give them the same story beats.
No, but Foundation didn't really continue with Harry Seldon beyond the first couple of books, I think.
Well, he wrote the first few books up to the end of the 40s, and then there was a 20-year gap, and then he returned to the series.
I mean, the ideas explored in Foundation in the later books got really wonky. I'll agree with you on that. But I don't, because Foundation never really followed a single character for too long.
No, but the style. I'm talking about the style. It was
Okay.
lean and concise, and there was no fat on it in the earlier ones. But then, after 20 years, Asimov had got lazy and prolix, and it didn't work. The two styles.
I
didn't
mean,
work.
I felt that was the case with his stories in general. Anyway, the early stories were pretty to the
Very
point.
pretty awful, yeah. But there was a time when he wrote in a quite an inefficient sort of way. But then
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's tale as old as time when it comes to writers, right? You're young, unpublished, unknown, and hungry, and you're writing at a much better pace and a much better way and much tighter, and then you gain success, and capitalism ruins everything at some point, right? So it's like, oh, I got to go back to this well because I need more money, and
I mean,
the fans are gonna.
I could
Yeah.
say the same thing with Odyssey Clark. Like his early
Yeah.
books were tight. It's not exactly polished, but it's tight. Then the later books were like,
sad.
could use an editor that spoke his mind.
Yeah, it's a shame, but so maybe it's good that we didn't get more Conan or more Robert E. Howard, but I don't know. It's maybe a few more years would have been nice to see where he went with even his other writings, because I think he was so much more than he's so remembered for Conan. I think that I have read a good number of his other stuff, and it's just as powerful and visceral and energetic as the Conan tales. So. But who knows? We'll never know.
Well, but going back to the Red Nails,
Yes,
it is still a pretty good story, even though it did not feel like a Conan story to me. But that
here's
could,
an incentive.
that could
Go
just
ahead.
be because you guys put a trick on me and made me read the City of Skulls.
You're so bitter about that. You're just like, I got to go back and listen to that episode.
No,
tricked
like
me.
I read the City of Skulls and I was like, there's just something wrong about this story, And at the time, I didn't know it was a pastiche.
Right, it's like the old. This is the old commercial where someone switches out decaf for the regular coffee.
Yeah, I
right?
personally went into the copy that we got for XJ and removed all the names and everything. It was just like a white PDF with all the text. So he had no idea. And because he's old, he doesn't know how to use Google now. I'm kidding.
Let's not spoil what red nails are for the readers. I was almost going to talk about it, and I'm like, readers, if you want to read the story, you haven't read it, we're not going to tell you what the red nails are. You got to go and figure
Yeah,
it
yeah,
out
it's
for
a cool
yourself.
aspect to the story for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, that's one of the things. And then the trophy. I'm sorry. What the other people were doing with in the other end of the fights. But anyway, I won't go into that. Let's just say it's a surprise. You got to read it. We won't spoil that part. But anyway, sorry, Nikki, you were saying.
Yeah, I think here you in this story, Red Nails, you really get a good vibe as to what Conan is all about, without it being strictly about Conan's plight regarding getting money and all that kind of stuff. He even kind of admits it himself. Is like, yeah, I mean, I might not look like much, but it's because money basically does not stay with me. I spend it all as soon as I get it. And at the end there, once again, Robert E. Howard inserts why he stays poor. He's basically like, yeah, I don't know. They promised that all these jewels, but they're probably haunted. These people are weird. We should get out. And I kind of agree with him. The stuff they
Yes.
saw in like 2 days, it's like, that's enough
Yes,
for me.
that is a city in which I would not take anything with me if I happen to be there. You know?
Yeah, yeah.
The whole place just seems cursed.
I love the whole idea of these people are not even the original individuals who built the city. They're basically barbarous individuals who came in there to kill a dying race, and now, as if cursed by what they did, they're basically reliving that again. They're dying themselves.
My only issue with the story, if you can call it an issue, is I wish Robert E. Howard had not described the builders of the city. I
Really?
wish he had not give a description of the builders and just kept them mysterious.
Good point. Yeah, that's a good
And
point.
it would
was a
have
little
been
too-
it would have been maybe it would have borrowed a little bit too much from H.P. Lovecraft, if that's the case. But I was like, I was a little bit disappointed at the review. But yeah, I thought it would have been stronger if he had just like not said anything about the builders at all, and maybe just hinted at it, kind of like the Hour of the Dragon when he went into the pyramid, and the pyramid itself was just so mysterious, but obviously there was an inhabitant, the little girls, I think it was Set, or some avatar of Set or something like that. But beyond that, everything else was just like really mysterious.
Well, it's
Yeah,
pretty
the
mysterious.
exposition. Go ahead. What were you saying, Robert?
What did you say, Robert?
Yeah, so it's pretty mysterious because really we call it a city, but actually it was just one building. There are no streets in it at all. Very
Yeah,
effective.
I mean that was the part that got me feeling like it would have been like, I felt as if I was reading H.P. Lovecraft at that point, and it would have been so much better for me if he had just like not mentioned the builders at all, or just like a couple of lines of the builders, and then that's it. Yeah, but that is like a quibble on my part. The rest of the story was, well, it was very tightly paced. Stuff was happening all the time. The prose is beautiful for people who like reading good prose. You know, you could never go wrong with Robert E. Howard. Well, except that one time with The Pool of the Black Ones.
Well,
Yeah,
it's
and as a
great
big
story.
reader, what's that? Sorry, Robert.
I was just saying, great story, The Pool of the Black One. I recommend it.
Yeah.
No, it's terrible. Terrible. Nobody should pick it up.
And in terms of, just it always fascinates me. It's amazing, like the how much sword and sorcery today still borrows from his concepts and the way he wrote, from the description to the concepts to like sort of the situations. Like it's just right from the beginning. I mean, just he so established this. Just going, there's things when I read sword and sorcery today where I'm like, okay, this is how the genre is, but it's just how much they still borrow from him, and how the things that I read today were like, wow, he was writing about that in the 1930s. He was writing the same kind of way. So it's really they're writing the same as him. So it's just how I'm always constantly finding myself surprised of like not just the tropes in a bad way, but just the all the things that are good about sword and sorcery. He was like right from the jump was like all of the trappings that you would expect are there. Just it's amazing, and it's really a testament to his importance in the genre. So yeah.
Yeah, and you know, it didn't even start in the tavern this time around.
Yeah, right. That's great, man. It's always a bonus. No tavern, no tavern in sight.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anything else you guys maybe have any nitpicks on the story? I don't know, from the reader, as reading it, going through as a reader. I don't know.
I'd like to say
Nick,
that we haven't mentioned a lot of the good scenes in it.
it's true.
The
Let's go with the good
dinosaur,
stuff.
the fight with the dinosaur was excellent. That whole first episode before they even get to the city is top notch.
Yeah, the dragon. Yeah, which seems like more like a dinosaur, like you're saying, but they would call it a dragon for sure.
I don't know. Did it read like a dinosaur to you guys? It felt like a big lizard to me. Like a
Big lizard,
really big
dinosaur.
lizard. Like
Komodo dragon,
yes, exactly, a Komodo
But-
dragon. That was the thought that went into my mind.
but bigger.
It also had aspects of chameleon, though. It changed color.
Yeah.
When it got angry, the colors changed, so it was sort of like a big chameleon in that way too. So it definitely seemed like just giant lizard / dinosaur. But yeah, that whole sequence was absolutely, Robert, great to point out that in the beginning, just even before they get to the action in the city. Yeah,
And,
I don't know any other things that stand out.
The character of Ted, let me get this right, Ted Chottle, the first inhabitant that they meet and that Valeria rescues from the people of Zotalank, and this guy Ted Chottle feels grateful towards Valeria and Conan for the help they give the people of Zootchotl, and that's he's quite a pathetic character, really. He gets killed in the end by his ruler Olmec for his loyalty. So that's a memorable. He provides some memorable moments in the story.
Yeah, it's one of these people of these debased peoples that actually is still human, has human aspects to him. He's not just bloodthirsty. He shows loyalty. He shows companionship or friendship to Conan in a way that I think that he doesn't show normally with these debased people that live in these horrible situations. So yeah, he was a good character. One of the many that begins with either an X or a T. Except for Olmec, everybody else's names or the names of the places or the tribes were X or T. Sorry.
Yep.
That's great. But yeah, that's a good point. He was more of a human degenerate than anybody
we
else.
mentioned the vampire woman Tuscala.
Oh yeah,
She's
That's-
a bit of a one.
Or that's the
Yeah.
Helen of Troy of the story.
yes, the culmination of things. I think the story definitely pays things off. He definitely peppers in hints about her, and just and just like peppers in in telling these stories of the past of this, and even the more distant past and the more recent past of just these feuding tribes. He peppers in what she may be or who she may be, and same thing with the old rulers of the place. So, and that really culminates well at the end of the story. The climax, I thought, was well done. Again, no spoilers, but if you are listening and you want to read it, or you're watching and you want to read it,
Yeah.
but yeah, she definitely a great culmination there with her, and among other things. Yeah.
If I were to gamify this story, I would definitely put in more stuff from the builders inside the city, like automatons or some crazy technology that the current people who are living in it cannot understand it, and them interacting with it, or perhaps one of the assailing sides risking activating something to do this one desperate battle where Conan has to fight this like Jade Warrior or something like this. You know,
That would
add
have
more
been
crazy
that
stuff.
would have been like the exact same thing as the City of Skulls.
That's right. I mean, what I said about the City of Skulls stands today. You know, like I think it's a pretty good prestige, all things considered. It may not be written akin to the way Robert E. Howard writes, but it definitely gets the spirit right. Even though it definitely feels different. As far as what's it called? As far as all the characters go, I kind of feel that we really have got two. We've got Valeria and we've got Conan, and they both get, you know, stuff to do in the story. And they're both useful to it. I feel like Valeria could do a bit more, but at the same time, she was the one to stab the vampire, right? So she got her revenge in the end. It's gotta be a pretty tough time being a woman in the Hyborian age. You either A, evil, B, you don't know what you're doing and you get constantly kidnapped, or C, you're very brave but you're also old. You know, those are the three types of Hyborian age women.
It's very striking. One line that I remember particularly from the story is Valeria just learned to fear a man, and now she learned to fear a woman. I thought that was like, well, I mean, that's a really pretty turn of phrase, man. But it's also like, wow, mind blown. Because
Yeah, but
because
I don't know.
because that there is it goes to show just how dangerous what's her name, Tarsila. It's just how dangerous Tarsila actually is.
Yeah.
Yeah, and yeah, well, Valeria definitely inflicts some injury upon her fellow woman too in the story. I won't go too into the depths of
Yes,
that.
there is that too.
She definitely was like reading that scene. I'm like, hey, a little like self-report on Howard's part during that.
Yeah.
Like, okay, interesting.
Well, I'm a step
he's
away from
he's
that.
into that. But yeah, she's a woman.
I don't know,
to fear.
guys. I think you just don't get the intellectual intricacies of Conan the Barbarian. Okay, you just
Barbarian.
yeah, that's right.
But
Oh well.
interesting.
Right. Well, I guess well, I don't really have anything else to say about the story, to be quite honest, except that it's a very good yarn. It's well paced, and it's a great way to spend an afternoon. Really, just reading the story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's go to scores.
Who's up?
Robert, how
Robert?
many hundreds out of 10 do you give?
No, I would give it 9.5 out of 10.
Less than 10.
Ah,
It's a
Let the man
it's a-
speak. Let the man speak.
I'm saving the full marks for the Hour of the Dragon.
Oh.
That to me is perfect. So this can't be as good as that, but it is very good. In fact, it's even better than the Pool of the Black One, and I can't put it more strongly than that.
Well, okay. Well, I will agree that it is better than the Pool of the Black Ones for sure.
Wait. Okay, hold on. XJ, Pool of the Black One versus the City of Skulls. Which one wins?
They're both terrible. No.
Yeah, but you have to choose.
Okay,
They're both.
The City of Skulls is slightly better than the Pool of the
Oh
Black Ones.
my goodness.
That is
Well,
how
the
bad the
prestige
Pool of
wins.
the Black Ones is to me.
Yeah, that's fair. What about you, Anthony? What's your score?
I'm gonna give it a 9. I'm gonna give it a 9, slightly lower than Robert, but I think that as his last Conan tale, I think it was a good encapsulation of and an evolution of his writing powers and his tropes. And yeah, I think it's the master of this sort of tale, the originator or one of the originators. You can argue about the others of his contemporaries who may have helped to contribute to this genre, but I still think he stands above them. And yeah, I would say I give it a 9. And farewell, Conan, going off into the realm of the pastiche after after this story, much to XJ's eternal chagrin. But
I'm
for
sure
better or
there are.
worse.
I'm sure there are like, good Conan pastiches out there.
There are. Yeah, there are.
I just wasn't terribly fond of the City of Skulls, which is the only pastiche I read. Only because
Well,
Robert E. Howard's original stuff was so good. Except for that
Except
Full of the
for
black
the
for
full
that
of the black one.
little that aberration. Yeah.
what's your score for the red nails?
I'll give it a 9. I'll give it a 9.
Give it a 9. Whoa, okay.
You.
I mean, I can't believe it.
You are giving
We
it
are
a
reviewing
lower
a Conan
score?
story. I'm giving a lower score than everybody else. I'm giving it
Oh.
an 8.5.
Oh
I'm
my
giving it an
god!
8.5 out of
Oh
10.
my
I'm
god, Mickey!
controversial.
How can you call yourself a
Controversial.
Robert E. Howard fan? Oh.
I know I'm red in the face and I'm orange in the duvet.
Yeah.
What
And-
knocks it down for you? What knocks it down to 8.5?
Yeah,
for you?
well, yeah, I thought this was coming. So the story's good. It has a lot of elements. It's got a lot of cool fights. I think that the explanation regarding the city went on a little bit too long, and it was kind of like, okay, I'm interested to learn this, but you haven't put anything in here to be crazy enough for me to be like, wow, okay. Like, this is adding some new dimension to the universe. And this is because I'm spoiled. I'm spoiled for the fact that Robert E. Howard does this. He does twists. He adds something interesting. He flips the script on you a little bit. He gives you an out of nowhere otherworldly creature that comes from the sky. That's an elephant, right? Like we read about in the last episode, and the episode before that with the gods and how they interacted with the world. It's like there was something missing, and then the guy who was supposed to be dead the entire time came about, and then I was like, okay, now we're gonna get some twist, now we're gonna get something crazy, and then just nothing kind of happened. He just kind of fizzled out, and then Conan was like, yeah man, the jewels are haunted. I'm like, yeah, I mean, from a perspective of like a superstitious barbarian maybe, but we didn't really see anything that weird about this city besides there being a vampire there. Like, but she came in there after the builders were there, so man, maybe just grab a couple and see what happens.
Well, I'm like I'm like sitting on the complete opposite end of you. That city is so great to me because again, it's not a city. Exactly as Robert had said, it is actually one building. It is one building. So that architecture alone makes it really strange, And yeah, it's like I thought that was the best part of the story for me.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But
I just
that's
wish they
kind
did
of-
more with it. Yeah, so
Yeah.
Fair enough,
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, that's why it kind of knocked it down to a 9 for me. It was just a little too much info dump, a little too much explaining away the mystery. But, again, I think it's interesting but because Robert E. Howard, he praised himself in his letters, saying, like, I gave a little more of a reason why these people have fallen into barbarism, the negative kind of barbarism and degeneracy. But a little too much into it, but that kind of slowed the pace of the story down. Oh, not to a halt, but so that's kind of docked it for me. But anyway,
Uh,
controversy.
I enjoyed it better reading it this time than I ever have before, actually. I think I appreciated the fact that it's the only Conan story in which a woman shares top billing with Conan. I know there's the Queen of the Black Coast, Elliot the Pirate, but I think this Valeria is much more of a character, and I don't agree that there was anything wrong or inconsistent with the portrayal of her in this story. I think she gets full marks for being a great character. And Conan also comes off very well because, although he has lots of faults, piracy being one of them, in that horrible environment, he really shines out as someone who's really good to have on your side.
Yeah,
Okay,
indeed,
I
and
have
maybe-
to. Yeah,
Go ahead. No, go ahead. You have to what?
I have to read the Scarlet Citadel.
Yes,
wanted to
you
say.
absolutely have.
I have to read it. Like I just read the first thing, and I stopped immediately. You know, like a little snippet of like, okay, what's this about? It's like 3 or 4 lines long, but I read the first one and I was like, I'm done reading it because I just want to experience it myself. After the Aquilonian army under the guidance of King Conan has been slain, I stopped reading. I was like, wait a minute, what happened?
It's
So-
the first time he gets pushed off his throne. The second time is in The Hour of the Dragon.
Oh my god, I gotta read it. Yeah, okay, awesome. One last thing about Red Nails. I think that if you have an inkling, a desire to experience raw sword and sorcery, this is a really good book for that. You have a book, short story, because you have so many interesting elements, like the city, like these 2 tribes in decrepity, like the dinosaurs who are called dragons in the story, but are pretty well described, so you understand that they're dinosaurs. There's so many cool elements in it. Yeah, you're just gonna be going from moment to moment, seeing new exciting stuff. So yeah.
And one other thing before we go, one other tidbit that, speaking of Valeria Robert, the fact that she made it into the Conan movie, the first Conan movie, Valeria, they brought Valeria into the movie as a character. So if that's a testament to her equality with Conan as a warrior and as almost an equal to Conan, I don't know what is. So she transferred over to the big screen in that script. So Valeria lives on, you know, and she asked Conan the famous line, "Do you want to live forever?" Right?
Oh.
So
Come on, apes. Do you want to live forever?
that's right.
All right.
All right.
All right, gents. Good one.
Well,
Good story.
let's
good
wrap
conversation.
up the Red Nails by Robert E. Howard. A
Read
Conan
it.
story. A must read, in my
Must read.
humble opinion. And with that, I bid our listeners a good day. Like and subscribe if you like our content and all of that jazz. Until next time.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.
Bye all.